Yes, it is time.
Yeah, you did it.
Yep, thank you.
It is time.
If they want to be truant, let them be truant.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Okay. So we have been going through Genesis, and I'm not going to say we're going to finish it today because every time I say that we don't. So we're just going to keep going. And once we finish Genesis, then we go on to Exodus. Larry said a couple days ago he's not sure where I plan on stopping. I plan on stopping at 2 Samuel / First Chronicles. Because First Chronicles is all about David. Second Chronicles is about all the other kings of Judah. Which is where First Kings will pick up, though technically there's a bit of bleed between First Chronicles and First Kings as well, but there's a lot as well. Don't worry about that. And the idea is we're looking at how God is different. Terry asked last week, are there any other religions essentially where where the God wants a intimate relationship with his creation, where he wants to be known by them, where he wants to be part of that, where he wants them to live, where he wants to be with them, and it to be a relationship not just out of awe and fear, but also out of love. I've not been able to find anything like that. I can tell you this: we're Christians. Do you know how little we have to do to be saved compared to other religions? If you're a Muslim, do you know what you have to do to stay in Allah's good graces? You have to give charitably. You have to go to Mecca at least once in your life. You have to keep Ramadan every year, which means essentially you're not eating for most of the day, and then you're having a feast at like 2 a.m. You have to. Did I say go to Mecca? Yeah, I said. There's 5 things you have to do. I don't remember exactly what they are. You have to do those things to be saved. What did the Old Testament Israelites have to do to be saved? Animal sacrifice upon animal sacrifice upon animal sacrifice. We don't have. What do we have to do to be saved? Yes, exactly. Believe and be baptized. And baptism is really part of believing because believing means following. So all we have to do is believe and follow. So yeah, we've got it easy in some ways. because God wants to be with us. He doesn't want us. All right, before we continue on here into Jacob, who is an excellent model of a father to talk about on Father's Day. It's okay to laugh. Yes. Yes, exactly. I'm being sarcastic. I have no children, so maybe he actually is a good example, and I don't know. But anyways, Brian really starts off in prayer.
Lord, we thank you for this day, for this opportunity we have come together to study your word. We pray that you would Stephen, help me for us to gain something from this lesson and help us draw closer to you. Mindful of those, Lord, that can't be with us or suffering, for family, we pray that you would send Lord help. We thank you again for Jesus and we pray.
Amen. All right, so our key verse. Gotta get that. Sorry. OBS is being really stupid today, and the PowerPoint's being done. So, O Lord God of Israel, there was no God like you in heaven above or on earth beneath, keeping covenant and showing steadfast love to your servants who walk before you with all their heart. Abraham did so. Isaac did so. Jacob's like, if A, B, and C, and D happen, then I'll do this. So Jacob, as we were talking about. So last we left off, Jacob's decided that it's time to go home because God's told him to, and because things are not going well at his uncle Laban's with the flocks and stuff with his uncle Laban anymore. It's at the farm, but they're nomads, so that wouldn't really make sense. So he says, okay, I'm going to send some stuff to Esau and hopefully make him happy because last I heard about my brother, he wanted to kill me. So I'm going to send all my a bunch of my animals. Then I'm going to send my wife and kids. Then I'll send my other wife and kids. And then I'll follow behind. And while he's following behind, he gets in a fight. wrestling match per se. And after that, he's essentially when his hip's partially broken, but he's given a new name. And after that, he's like, okay, I should be leading and not just hiding behind everyone. Though he still somewhat does that. So, anyways, chapter 33. Esau's coming with 400 men. How does the reunion go? Good. Turns out Esau, I'm not going to, Esau is happy to see Jacob. They haven't seen each other for at least 20 years. They hug. Esau's like, what's all this stuff? And Jacob's like, well, I thought if I gave you all this, you'd be happy, to get favor from you. And Esau's like, I have enough already. Jacob's like, no, take it. And Esau's like, okay, I'll take it. Here, come home with us. And Jacob's like, well, we got to travel slowly because we don't want to mess up the younger animals. And Joseph's probably pretty young, is probably still somewhat young here. Benjamin's about, Rachel's with child, so you don't want to push her too hard. And so Jacob's like, yeah, I'll follow behind you. And Jacob goes a completely different direction instead of going home. Yes, Larry?
I think Esau would have said, come home with me, have a bowl of soup.
Yes. Come home with me, have a bowl of soup. Well, Jacob will eventually head back home at some point, but briefly. But regardless, Jacob's going to go off elsewhere. This leads us to chapter 34, where his daughter, Dinah, goes to meet the women of the area, and she is raped, essentially by the prince of the city. There's nothing in the scriptures that says that this was a consensual union. So yeah, she's sexually assaulted. She's raped by this guy. And then afterwards, he's like, I really like her. I really love her. So I'm gonna marry her. So he's the prince of the city, essentially. His dad would essentially be the king, a mayor per se. And they go and they talk to Jacob, and they're like, well, hey, you live around us now, at least for now, because nomadic culture, because this is a city. So how about our daughters marry your sons marry our daughters, and we'll be one people. And Jacob's like, Meanwhile, his I want to get this right, because I don't think it's Jacob that gives this advice. Jacob actually doesn't really say too much about this. The sons of Jacob answered, this is 34:13. The son, and also Shechem wants, Shechem, yeah, that's the man that did the vile deed, wants Dinah as his wife. So verse 13, the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully because he had defiled their sister Dinah. They said to them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become as we are by every male among you being circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell with you and become one people. But if you will not listen to us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will be gone. Other words pleased Hamor, and Hamor sent Shechem. The young man did not delay to do the thing, because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. He was the most honored of all his father's house. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the city and essentially told the men, hey, this is what they say. And all the men are like, okay, we'll do that. So here's what we know. Jacob has to have probably more than one daughter. We don't know how many. I know it's sometimes it's just phrasing too and stuff, but in theory, or at least maybe he just has that one, but all the women are just really interested. The men who are the men going to marry if he doesn't have others? Also, what's wrong with their own women in their town? Just wondering. Anyway, so on the third day when they were sore, because when you're an adult and you get circumcised, it takes a while to recover. On the third day when they were sore, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, note, Simeon and Levi are almost always, Levi's name means attached, but the two of them almost always seem to be doing something together. And we'll see this at the end of Genesis as well, how the two are actually lumped together in some ways. Not all the time, but Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brother, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure and killed all the males. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword and took Dinah out of the house, Shechem's house, and went away. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city. So you have two that go and murder everyone, and now the rest of the guys are coming into town to plunder because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds, their donkeys, and whatever was in the city and in the field. So Jacob's going to have more now than he started with, except this is probably not how he wants to acquire things. All their wealth, all their little ones and their wives, all that was in the houses they captured and plundered. So they took the women and the children. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me stink to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household." But they said, "Should he treat our sister like a prostitute?" Now, chapter 35, God's going to tell Jacob, go to Bethel, make an altar, or dwell there, make an altar. So I want you to go to Bethel. I want you to settle there for a time, and I will protect you from the people around you because of what has happened. So even though something awful has happened, God's like, okay, we can work with this. I'll protect you, so these nations will not destroy you for what your sons just did to the town and city of Shechem. So he tells them to give him all the foreign gods and stuff because he knows now someone's carrying idols they're not supposed to have. They shouldn't have. He goes and buries them someplace. And as they journeyed, a terror of God fell upon the cities that were around them, so they did not pursue him. Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died. Verse 8. She hasn't been mentioned since Genesis 24. Apparently she was traveling with Jacob this whole time and just has been with him, or maybe she met him partway there with Esau or something. We don't know. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, passes away. God appears to Jacob again and blesses him. And again, just like in chapter 31 or 32, whenever is it 31 or 32? 32, God's going to say, your name is no longer Jacob, it's Israel. It's Israel. God changed Abram and Abraham to Abraham and things so. Names have power, names have meaning. So chapter 35, going on verse 16. Then they journeyed from Bethel. When they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into labor, and it's always a weird translation. She had hard labor. And when her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, "Do not fear, you have another son." She called him son of my sorrow, then Oni, but Jacob called him Benjamin, son of my right hand. So and then Rachel dies. Jacob has just lost his favorite wife, the mother of his two favorite sons. Again, we're not meant to play favorites with children and with the people around us. So anyways, while Israel lived in that land, Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, so his step-aunt in some ways, I guess, if you want to think of it that way, because, this family has, 4 women that have given birth to 12 different men, and how many women, so, yeah. It's confusing. Reuben went and lay with his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it. Okay, that's going to get Reuben in trouble later. Just like what Simeon and Levi have done will get them in trouble later. God is paying attention to what these men are doing. And that's going to matter a lot. So now the sons of Jacob were 12. Jacob came to his father's house, Isaac, this is verse 27, at Mamre, or Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had sojourned. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. Remember, 25 years before this, he's like, I can't see anymore. I think I'll be dead soon. It's been 20 years. I think Isaac might have just given up a long time ago, unfortunately. And again, they don't have the services they have today, But at the same time, now the days of Isaac were 180 years. He breathed his last, and he died, and was gathered to his people, old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. And if you go back to 35 at the beginning, Jacob is essentially saying, okay, I'm essentially home now, and I got here safely, so the God of my fathers is now my God. So that's one of the reasons he tells them to put the idols and things away. because he's like, okay, I know who I'm worshiping. I know for sure who I'll worship and follow now. So so even though Jacob made a somewhat potentially rash vow in some ways, and conditional prayer, God answered it and respected it. So chapter 36 is about Esau's descendants. He took wives from the Canaanites, Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Basemath, or Basamath, I don't know, Basemath. It looks like Basemath. I don't know how to pronounce it. Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Nebaioth. I can't pronounce these names. Nebaioth, yes. So anyways, chapter 36 is all about Esau's descendants, in the land of Edom / Seir. So then that briefly takes us to 37. And the wrong button. No? Okay. Sorry, PowerPoint is being weird today. To Joseph. Okay. So, anyone here ever get frustrated sometimes with the chapter divisions because they don't make sense? Yeah. So the first verse, the first two verses of verse and a half of chapter 37, Jacob lived in the land of his fathers, sojourners in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph being 17, it really should just start with, it really should end there. We're halfway through chapter 37, but it doesn't matter. I know that's really small because this is a lot here. And I forgot to put chapters by 49 and 50 here. Sorry about that. Just realized that. I made this like a month ago. Yeah. So, Joseph. All right. So, I mentioned this in our study, our Lads to Leaders-based study several years ago. When we think of Joseph, we tend to think of this little kid with the bright coat and everything. Joseph's 17 years old when his story really starts. He's a man, essentially, in that era, in that time and place. So, don't be thinking of some little kid going, I had a dream and I saw the stars and the moon and the... No, this is imagine your teenage child coming up and saying, hey, I had this dream, okay? You bow down to me, and you bow down to me, and you bow down to me. Yeah, it's he's no little kid, and it seems weird because he's going to be sent to go see how his brother's doing with the sheep. Jacob is keeping Joseph home, most likely not because he one because he's his favorite, but two, he's teaching Joseph how to manage everything, how to run a household, how to run a family, how to run a business per se, how to run things. It's hard to do both. Jacob learned it probably under Laban, and then he got to start doing it on his own. Benjamin is much younger, we know too here, so Benjamin's will grow up here over some time. So Joseph is 17. So here he is pasturing the flocks, and he starts having these dreams. He gave a bad report about the brothers of Zilpah, about the brothers of the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Those are the Jacob's concubines from the nurse that was assigned to Leah and the nurse that was assigned to Rachel, who he had 3 or 4 kids with. I think 4, 2 with each, I think. Joseph has the dreams. We know about these. So he is sent to go check up on them, and his brothers are like, "Oh, here's Joseph. Here's the dreamer. Let's kill him." And that's what they say. And Reuben is like, no. And now Reuben is not always the most mature person, but Reuben knows how things stand in the family. He's like, that's Dad's. And you're like, no, let's not kill Joseph. That's Dad's favorite. So they're like, okay, we'll throw him in a pit and figure out what to do with him. Now Reuben decides to wander off. Maybe they need to find a sheep or something like that. And some traders come by, and Judah's like, you know what? We can't kill Joseph. Let's sell him. So get rid of him regardless. So they sell him. Reuben comes back and is like, what happened to Joseph? And they're like, oh, we found another way to get rid of him. And then they took Joseph's coat, they bloodied it up, gave it to Jacob, and Jacob was depressed for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years because his son was, as far as he knew, was gone. So meanwhile, Joseph is going to be sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. Chapter 38 is interesting because it has nothing to do with Joseph, outside of maybe this is a reaction to what happened. Judah's going to go and the timeline here is kind of weird, but Judah's going to go and meet a woman. He's going to marry her. They're going to have 3 kids. And then he's going to give his eldest a wife named Tamar. And his first son will be wicked in the sight of the Lord, and God's just going to outright kill him. The second, so he's going to follow, so Judah will try to follow the law of the levirate before the law of the levirate and say, and again, following custom, tell his second son, give your brother's wife a child so that he can be remembered by. His son does not do that, and God also destroys him. Judah freaks out and goes, okay, well, 2 of my 3 sons are dead. And my third son isn't old enough yet to marry, so I'm going to do the completely irresponsible thing and send her back to her father, my daughter-in-law back to her father's house instead of providing for her. So his third son's old enough to marry, hasn't been given in marriage yet. And Tamar is like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be having, I'm supposed to be with Judah and these people over here, not with my father. So she goes and disguises herself as a prostitute. I saw one translation, or a harlot in some way, a temple prostitute, essentially. So thank God we don't have this in our beliefs in our fellowship. There used to be people who would literally, their jobs were to lay around in front of temples and shrines and stuff and have sex for worship. You go and you do that with, yeah. So she's kind of hanging around someplace like that. One commentary translated as a votary, which is a very interesting way of phrasing it. And when's the last time you heard someone refer to it as a votary? V-O-T-A-R-Y. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's an interesting choice of words there. Anyways, Judah's feeling down because his wife has died. He's like, oh, here's a woman. So Judah and the woman, yeah, and she's like, well, what are you going to give me? Because I guess he doesn't have his money with him. He's like, I'll give you my signet ring. Where he's like, what do you want? She's like, I'll take your signet ring and your staff. Essentially, I'll take the things that identify you as so everyone knows who you are. And Judah, in his poor decision making, agrees to this. That's like telling someone, hey, yes, I'll have a relationship with you if you give me your social security number card, all your credit cards, your driver's license, and the passwords to all your emails and your cell phone. Yeah. Essentially, give them your identity, essentially. So several months later, he finds out that Tamar is pregnant and via harlotry, as some say. And what's Judah's response? Let her be burned. And so she's like, hold on here. Whoever these things belong to is the father. Judah looks at the things like, oh. And he says something really important here. This is verse 28. Then Judah identified them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not know her again. So when Reuben slept with the one he wasn't supposed to sleep with, one of his, I don't know how you call them, step aunts or what they are. It's such a weird situation. We don't have anything about him having any sorrow or repenting. When Simeon and Levi murder an entire city, nothing. Judah does something dumb. He's human. We're human. We've done similar things probably in other ways. Judah, he's like, she was right. I was wrong. I was supposed to take care of her and I did not. So Judah here is starting to learn that you cannot just do what you want and get away with it all the time, which he has seen his brothers do, which they've done with Joseph, which he probably learned from Jacob, to be honest, that you cannot just do what you want and get away with it all the time. There are consequences. So meanwhile, speaking of consequences, Joseph is in Egypt, and he's going to be in Potiphar's house. And essentially Potiphar is not going to worry about anything at all except for when he's going to eat. Joseph's going to take care of everything because Joseph knows how to manage things because Jacob taught him how to manage a household. Joseph, things will be going well, and then all of a sudden Potiphar's wife will start going, you know what? I'm not seeing much of my husband. I'm seeing a lot of Joseph. I've heard some people postulate that Potiphar was a eunuch, and therefore not much could be done with his wife, could not do much with him. I don't know if that's true or not. We know historically that a lot of people that would be closest to rulers, men, would be essentially castrated and made eunuchs. So they wouldn't sleep with the queen or do things like that. But we don't know if that's true about Potiphar or not. I'm not sure what they did in Egypt, to be honest. Egyptian history is really interesting. But anyways, so she's gonna tell Joseph, lie with me, have sex with me, and Joseph's gonna be like, no, I'm not, like, I cannot, you're asking me to sin in the sight of God, and besides, you are the only thing that my boss cares about aside from his food. And he's gonna run away. She's gonna grab his cloak, so he's gonna be at least half naked, and then she's gonna get revenge on him for jilting her in some ways, though he did the right thing. And her husband's going to throw him in prison. He's going to send close every door to me. End of Act 1 of Joseph's Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I'm not sure if there's the act divisions are. But anyway, so Joseph is now in prison. Chapter 40. And he's going to do well in prison because he knows how to manage things. Is he going to be happy? Probably not. But he's going to be busy. The people in charge of the prison are going to trust him just like Potiphar trusted him. People trust Joseph, except his brothers. People trust Joseph. And a lot of that's God, I believe, is God's doing. Because Joseph needs to be where he is at, and Joseph needs to be in very specific places within a certain amount of time for things that have to happen. So Joseph is pretty much running the prison as well as he can, as much as he can within reason, and Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker are sent to him. And again, Pharaoh, and they're like, hey, we had dreams, and how does Joseph phrase it? I don't want to misquote him. Let's see. We have had dreams, and there was no one to interpret them. This is verse 8. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? No, they don't belong to him. They belong to God. Tell them to me. So Joseph has been maturing over this time as well, too. So the cupbearer gives a dream, and the baker give a dream. The cupbearer gives the dream first, and he's like, this happened. And Joseph's like, here's what this means. In 3 days? This is interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, this is verse 13. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly when you were his cupbearer. Only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the pit. So I have good news for you, cupbearer. You're getting your job back, and when you get a chance, tell Pharaoh about me and get me out of here, please. The baker's like, okay, he had a good dream. He had a good report of the dream, so I should too. How's the baker's dream going to end up? Not well. His head will also be lifted up, not in a way, but as in a removed way and stuck on a peg, essentially. Yes. Does Jacob ask him to remember him? No. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you. And 3 days later, it happened just like Joseph said. And as we know here, he restored the chief cupbearer to his position. He placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. In other words, it is not God's time for Joseph to be out of prison yet. So after 2 more years, Pharaoh has his dreams about the cows and the reeds, and he's like, I don't know what this means, and it scares me. So the chief cupbearer goes, yeah, remember when you had me in prison 2 years ago? There was this guy that told me this dream and it came true. And Pharaoh's like, get him over it, get him out here. So Jacob's let out. He shaves, probably washes. Guy probably hasn't had a chance to shave in 8, 9 years, however long he's down there. And Pharaoh tells him the dream, and Joseph's like, all right, we got a famine coming, because famines happen. And this is a big one. We're going to have 7 really good years of crops, and we're going to have 7 years of nothing, or next to nothing. And Pharaoh's like, okay, what do you suggest I do? He's like, who should I talk to? He's like, well, what do you think, Joseph? And Joseph's like, here's what we should do. Store things and everything else. And Pharaoh's like, you know what? Right. You are second in charge of Egypt. You can have my nice chariot. You can have the nice clothes and everything. So Joseph's gone from nothing to virtually everything. I mean, he even gets a wife out of this too. So this is verse 44. I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no one shall lift up your hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him in marriage to Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. So Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. He'll have 2 kids with her. The first one translates to, I have forgotten my troubles from before, essentially, or something along the lines of that. Yeah. So, Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh. So, about 13 years have passed since we started really getting into his story. So, a lot can happen in 13 years. Remember, he's 17 when we're introduced to him, when his story really starts. So that's chapter 41. So 7 good years happen, and then we're going to get to the 7 bad years. Starting in chapter 42. Joseph's brothers are going to go to Egypt, and they're going to be like, hey, we need some grain. And Joseph's got to see them and go, those guys. Now, I could be wrong about this, but and I know in some ways it's testing, but in some ways too, I feel Joseph is trying to get his own form of revenge here because of what his brothers did to him. Because remember, his father's Jacob. Joseph comes from a very violent and vengeful family, if you think about it. Even if he's not one of Leah's children, Joseph did not come from a healthy family situation. But he's going to essentially tell his brothers they're spies and essentially say, okay, he's going to get information from them. He's going to find out Jacob's alive, and he's going to find out if Benjamin's his blood brother's okay. And he's like, okay, you don't come back without Benjamin. And you know what? I'm going to keep all of you here and send one of you to get them. Then he's like, no, strike that, reverse that. I'm going to keep one of you here and the rest of you go and get them. He's going to pull Simeon out for reasons unknown. Maybe he just didn't really like Simeon. I don't know. And going to keep Simeon there. They're going to go back to Jacob/Israel, and he's going to be like, okay, you brought food back. You also brought the money back. They're like, yeah, it was still in our sacks. So Joseph had the money put back that they brought. And they're like, we can't go back now. There's a problem. We can't go back without Benjamin. He's like, you're not taking Benjamin. If you take Benjamin, I will die. You've already, Joseph is lost, and I'm deprived of Simeon. I'm down 2 sons now. As far as Israel's concerned, he's down to 10 sons. So time passes. And also at some point here, Reuben's like, no, we'll go to Egypt, and if I don't bring Benjamin back, you can kill my children. Israel wants nothing to do with that deal. So chapter 43, they discuss again, and essentially it's the same conversation. And after a while, Judah says, you know what? I'll be responsible for Benjamin. So if something happens to him, you can kill me, or I can be enslaved or something. Not my children, like Reuben suggested, but me. I'll be the sacrifice I'll be sacrificed if necessary. And with that, Israel's like, okay, I can work with that. Take some pistachios, some nice stuff over there to show them what we have here in the land. Bring the gold back. Maybe it was a mistake, and take Benjamin with you, and do your best to bring him back, or I'll die of despair. So they go back to Egypt, and I know we're getting through the rest of Joseph here in a minute. Anyways, they bring the stuff to him. Joseph sees Benjamin, and he's happy. He goes and cries a bit. Then they have this big feast in Joseph's house. Joseph's brothers are all at one table. Joseph's probably on his own, and then everyone else at another table, because apparently they can all eat in one place, but not at the same table. And they have a big feast. Benjamin's given a ton more than everyone else. And then there's going to be a trick. Then Joseph's going to pull a page from his father and trick everyone. And we'll talk about that next week and finish Genesis and probably go right into Exodus. Because when you're in Egypt, might as well stay there for a while. Have a good day, everyone.